You're now tuned in to Let's Talk with Lady Blend on Intermix Radio.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Lady Blend. I am Lady Blend. I know I've been around, I've been gone for a while, but I am back. And we have a great podcast show, a great topic for you today. I want to give you the phone number where you can call in, and that phone number is 305-898-0271. You can call in your comments or you can text your comments. So today, we're going to talk about self-care. Self-care, that's a huge topic, and actually self-care, it affects everyone, all of us. Self-care affects all of us. And self-care is not selfish. So I want to start out with a couple of quotes. The first quote is by Parker Palmer. And Parker says, self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the only gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. Anytime we can listen to our true self and give the care it requires, we do it not only for ourselves, but for many others whose lives we touch. Now, the second quote is by Eleanor Brown. Eleanor Brown says, rest and self-care are so important. When we take time to replenish our spirits, it allows us to serve others from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. So let me say that one more time. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So those are the two quotes that I wanted to start out with. But again, our topic for this evening is self-care is not selfish. So the format that we're going to go through, I am going to first give you a definition of self-care. I'm going to tell you why self-care is important. And then we're going to discuss the self-healing process. So we're going to jump right in. There are different types of self-care. There are many different types of self-care. But the ones that we're going to focus on, that I'm going to focus on this evening, are physical and mental self-care. I'll say that one more time. Physical and mental self-care. So when we talk about that, we know that there is a mind, body, spirit connection. We all have it. We know that the most important organ in our bodies is our brain. We know that everything happens there. We know everything. I'm talking because my brain is sending a signal to my mouth and to make me talk. When we're walking, everything that happens in our bodies originates in our brains. So that connection, that mind-body connection, is interdependent, interconnected to our overall well-being. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is, what is self-care? I'm glad you asked. Self-care is a conscious act that people take to promote their physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being. I'll say that one more time because that's a mouthful. Self-care is a conscious. When we say a conscious act, we're saying it is intentional. It is an intentional act that people take to promote their physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being. Now, it is vital for building resilience towards life's stressors that we can't eliminate. So when we say we can't eliminate stressors, we mean that there are going to be things in your life that may cause you stress, challenges in your life that may cause you stress that you can't do anything about. So we have stressors on our jobs. We have stressors in our personal lives, in our professional lives. We just have stressors in relationships, family. There are stressors all around. But as the old adage says, we cannot control what people say to us or what people do to us, but we can control our reactions. So this is much the same. Those stressors, we can't control those stressors. We cannot eliminate those stressors. But what we can do is take self-care seriously so that we can be in a position to handle those stresses. And just to go back to part of the quote from Eleanor Brown, you cannot serve from an empty vessel. Okay. So when we take those steps to care for our minds and our bodies, then we are more and well equipped to live our best lives. And that is the objective. We all want to live our best lives. And so we have to do something. We have to actively do something. We have to intentionally do something so that we can live our best lives. Now listen to me good. Unfortunately, a lot of us think and we view self-care as a luxury and not a priority. And I'm going to say that one more time. A lot of us view self-care as a luxury and not a priority. And we need to prioritize ourselves because self-care is a priority. When we don't prioritize self-care, we get tired, we get overwhelmed, and we are ill-equipped to handle life's inevitable challenges. So it's important for us to assess how we're caring for ourselves in several different domains so we can ensure that we're caring for our mind, body, and our spirit. So let's talk about that. How do we look at self-care as a luxury? We look at self-care as a luxury because a lot of us, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to sit down. I don't have time to take care of myself. Everyone's pulling me in all directions. We sometimes try to be everything for everybody, and we don't take the time that we need to take care of ourselves. And I'm going to keep on going back to Eleanor Brown's point where she says, you cannot serve from an empty vessel. So if you're tired, if you're overwhelmed, if you're stressed out, you can't help anyone because you get to the point where everything is just overwhelming. Everything that happens stresses you out. Everything that happens is a crisis. And that's because you're overloading yourself and you're not taking the time to relax, relate, and release. And of course, that's not unique with me. We've heard that before. Relax, relate, and release. And guess what? We're not just talking about women. We're talking about men too. We're talking about men. We're talking about everyone. Everyone needs to take time to take care and practice self-care. Whether you go home and you say for 3 or 4 hours, I'm not going to do anything. So there's a song, and I was actually turned on to this song by my niece, and it says, today I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay in my bed. Don't feel like picking up my phone. Leave a message at the tone. Today I don't feel like doing anything. Nothing at all. And sometimes you have to say that to people. You have to turn off so that you can take care of yourself, because you can't take care of other people if you're not taking care of yourself. And in this particular point, I'm going to say no is a complete sentence. You don't need anything after that. You don't need a comma. You don't need a semicolon. No is a complete sentence. So when we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to give you some information about why self-care is important. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and you are listening to Let's Talk with Lady Bland on Intermix Radio. And today our topic is self-care is not selfish. So before we went to the break, I gave you a bit of information about self-care, and I told you the definition of self-care. Now we're going to talk about why is self-care important? Why is self-care important? Self-care is important because having an effective self-care routine has been shown to have a number of important health benefits. Now, some of those health benefits include reducing anxiety and depression. So we know anxiety and depression comes in when we get to the point, once again, when we're tired and we're overwhelmed. And again, I'm coming back to it because I like it. The vessel is empty and we're still trying to pour something into someone else when we are on empty. And that can definitely cause anxiety and it can cause depression. Another benefit of self-care is reducing stress and improving our resilience. And that's what we want to do. We want to reduce the stress that's in our lives. We cannot eliminate that stress, but we can reduce that stress. And once again, we look at it, we make that kind of parallel to, hey, what we do in those moments, how we respond in those moments when stress comes into our lives, when we have to deal with stress. We cannot eliminate it, but what we can do is try to reduce it. We can reduce that stress that's in our lives. Another benefit, it improves our happiness. Of course, we're happier. We're happier when we are taking care of ourselves. When we're taking care of ourselves and we have that well-being and we have that peace in our lives and we're handling the stress and everything that happens does not turn into a crisis, we are happy because it helps our overall well-being, and that's what we want to do. It increases our energy because you have more energy when you're taking care of yourself, when you rejuvenate yourself. You feel better and you have more energy to go on and do things. Your vessel is not empty. Your vessel is full, and therefore you have room. You have room to pour into someone else. And you don't want to give them everything that you have, but you have room to give them something. You have room to give them something. It reduces burnout. Burnout is a real thing. You can get burned out in your work. You can get burned out at home. You can get burned out in any particular situation when you do so much of it and you don't take the time to just take a beat. It's time for us to just take a beat. And so we have to make sure that we're not, again, running on empty and that we're not so tired and so overwhelmed that we can't go on, because being burnt out can cause a lot of other health issues as well. And then it also helps us to have stronger interpersonal relationships, because when we identify those things that stress us out, when we identify those areas that we need to improve in ourselves, when we take the time to take care of ourselves, that self-care, when we do that, when we're better, we can deal with other people better. It's difficult for you to deal with people in a place of peace or in a place where you want to be when you're stressed out, when you're tired, when you're overwhelmed. It is very difficult for you to deal with someone else. So it also helps us to build and improve and have stronger interpersonal relationships. Now, you all know I do my research, so I have to bring you some other things too. So this comes from the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization says self-care is important because it can help promote health, prevent disease, and help people better cope with illnesses. So if you understand that when you don't take care of yourself, that We're talking about mind and our physical cells. And all of those things are interconnected, is what I told you. They are interdependent on one another. When we don't take care of that, we compromise our immune systems. We compromise our mental health. And if you compromise your mental health, you are most assuredly compromising your physical health. Because remember, they are interconnected. They are interdependent on one another. So we have to take care of everything. We definitely have to take care of our mental health so that we can prevent disease. The mind is a funny thing. The mind is a funny thing. It's a strong thing. And if you don't take care of it, it can actually cause a lot of problems in your physical, in your mental, in your biological, in your psychological, in your physiological health. And we want to prevent that. So we want to kind of head that off at the path and say, hey, we're going to take some time and we're going to take care of ourselves. So I told you that we're going to talk. There are many areas of self-care, and I just gave you some of those. And we're going to talk about physical self-care. Physical self-care. Now, physical self-care comes in when we are taking care of our bodies. And we do that so that our bodies can run efficiently. And we know if we take care of our bodies will take care of us. If we neglect our bodies will eventually break down, and that's not what we want to do. So we want to take care of our bodies. And remember, once again, that there is a strong connection between body and our minds. So when we take care of our bodies, we'll think and feel better. And so taking care of our bodies means we go to our doctor's appointments. When something is not quite right, we might do some things initially to say, okay, well, maybe I'll try this and maybe I'll try that. And if that doesn't work, or if the situation or the circumstances doesn't improve, then we need to consult a professional. We need to go to our doctors and say, hey, this has been going on for X amount of time. I've done this, I've done that, and I still don't see any improvement. And so because of that, you need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. We're getting our physicals. And I'm going to say this. We all need to, men, you know you all are bad about doing that. Throw some dirt on it and it'll be better. We need to stop doing that. We need to, if there is something that is going on in your body and you know that it's not right, you know this, you need to go to the doctor. Women are better about doing it, but men, you've got to catch up, because you need to go to the doctors and you need to take care of yourself. You need to take your medication as prescribed. It is prescribed for a reason. You can't just take it any kind of way you want to take it. They tell you once a day, twice a day, with a meal, without a meal, whatever that prescription tells you to do, you need to take the medication as prescribed. You need to take it as prescribed. And another thing, we need to fuel our bodies. Fueling our bodies means eating properly. And I know a lot of times we may not have the time to do that as often as we should, but we definitely need to take the time to try to eat properly. And that takes planning. So we're talking about meal preparation. Some people prepare meals on Sundays because that's the day and that's the time that they generally have an opportunity to do that. And so eating healthier, cutting down on your sodium, cutting down on your sugar, all those things count towards, of course, your physical health and fueling your body. And another big one, getting enough sleep. Now, I know I'm guilty of that sometimes, not getting enough sleep. Sleep is when the body does everything the body does. When you sleep, your body takes care of all those processes while you're asleep. And when you don't get adequate sleep, and you don't get adequate sleep back to back to back to back to back, it can cause you problems during the day. It can cause you problems in your health. So in addition to eating properly, you also need to get the right amount of sleep. Now, doctors will tell you some groups by age and everything, they need different amounts of sleep. So, but you know your body, and you know that if you don't get enough sleep, you're tired, you're restless, and you just don't function. Sometimes when we talk about you have that fog, well, you have that fog, but because you didn't give your body enough time to rest, enough time to recover, and enough time to rejuvenate. And we need to make sure that we do that. So we're going to take another break, and we'll be right back. All right, we are back. I am back. And again, I am Lady Blend, and you are listening to Let's Talk with Lady Blend on Intermix Radio. And our topic for today is self-care is not selfish. The number that you can call in or text in your comments is 305-898-0271. And I'd love to hear from you. So when we last left off, we were talking about physical care. And so I want to give you a little bit more information about that. And so there are some questions that you should ask yourself about self-care to assess your self-care. And then you can determine whether or not there are needs for improvement. We can always do better in all areas, but to determine whether or not there's needs for improvement. The first question is something that I just talked about before we went to the break. Are you getting adequate sleep? Ask yourself, are you getting adequate sleep? And of course, just like going to the doctor, you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be true to yourself. Yourselves, are you getting adequate sleep? If you're not getting adequate sleep, then do something to change that. Is your diet fueling your body well? Are you eating the right amount of foods? Are you getting the right amount of vegetables, the right amount of fruits? Are you eating too many carbs? Are you eating too much sugar? Are you getting a balanced diet that can adequately fuel your body? That's important. Are you taking charge of your health? Are you taking charge? And taking charge of your health means when there's something that's not going right, there's something that's going, it's not feeling right, then you need to take charge of that. Go see somebody, go to your doctor, tell them what's going on with you so that they can suggest something to you to make things better. Don't ignore it. Let's stop doing this. Stop ignoring when things are going on. When things are going on with you, you need to pay attention to it. And that is a part of taking charge of your health. A part of also taking charge of your health that I mentioned earlier is making sure that you take your medications when you are supposed to and how you are supposed to take your medications. Are you getting enough exercise? No one expects you to go to the gym and work out for 24 hours or work out for 4 hours. No one expects you to do that. But it is important that you get some exercise every day. Even if it's just walking for 30 minutes, if it's just walking for 10 minutes, walking is exercise. Walking exercises your entire body. It exercises your entire body. And it's a good benefit to your body. And so if you do it every day, you have to get into a habit of doing that every day. So are you getting enough exercise? And that's what you should be asking yourself. So the questions again, are you getting adequate sleep? Are you eating? Is your diet fueling your body? Are you taking charge of your health? And the last question, are you getting enough exercise? So you should be asking yourself all of those questions. And if the answer to any of those questions is no, then you need to do something to change that, because the only person can change that is you. You want to live your best life. And living your best life means taking care of yourself, self-care, and doing all those things that help you to take care of yourself. We're going to take another little break, and we'll be right back, and we're going to talk about mental self-care. Hello, and welcome back to Let's Talk with Lady Blend. Our topic for today is self-care is not selfish. And before we went to the break, we were talking about physical self-care. And so now we're going to talk about mental self-care. Mental self-care. So mental self-care is about the way we think, and the things that we're filling our minds with. They greatly influence our psychological well-being. So, what you see and what you do, it definitely affects your psychological well-being, which is your mental health. So we have to be careful about what we allow in, and that includes what we watch on television. I know. It includes what we watch on television. It also includes those people who are negative people who are around you. Sometimes you have to drop people off because you find some people, every time you ask them how they're doing, they just not doing well. It's always a problem. It's just a downer. And yes, I understand that some people do feel that way, but sometimes you have to learn how to distance yourself somewhat from that, because that is also a part of your mental health. So if you're worrying about, or if you're taking in all these things that other people are saying to you, then it affects you. It affects you, and it affects how you think. So you have to be careful about the things that you allow in and the things that you fill your mind with. So mental care also includes things that keep your mind sharp, that keep you thinking, that keep you on your toes. Reading books. Even if you want to look at documentaries, and what I say about reading is read things that interest you. That keeps you sharp. And doing puzzles or doing crossword puzzles, word find, those things keep your mind sharp. And those are the things that you want to do, because you always want to have yourself in a posture where you're learning something. Learning something about a new subject, something that fascinates you, which goes back to reading a book about something that maybe it's something that you wanted to know about, that you've always wanted to learn about, that you were just curious about. You can find it in a book. So take the time to entertain your fascinations, entertain your imaginations, and that keeps you in a posture of learning, and it keeps your mind sharp. And once again, you might find reading books, watching inspirational movies, and they can fuel your mind. Mental care also involves doing things that help you stay mentally healthy. And what do we mean by that? Mentally healthy. Again, keeping your mind sharp, reading books, and sometimes, lots of times, we have to give ourselves affirmations. We have to understand and realize our self-worth. We have to understand that we are worth it. We are worth the time to take care of ourselves. We are worth it, and you have to understand that. That involves your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, how you see yourself. And when you see yourself as an important person, and you are an important person, you will take care of yourself. You will do those things that fuel, those things that help you to stay healthy, those things that help you to stay healthy. Practicing self-compassion. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. Something happens, and then, oh gosh, it's just the end of the world. But guess what? We can think about those things. We can reflect on those things. But what has happened is the past. It's the past. We don't get do-overs. We can't go back and do it again, because if we went back and did it again, it does not necessarily mean that you will get your desired result. But we have to give ourselves a break sometimes. Give ourselves a break. Be compassionate. We want to have compassion for others, but we also want to have compassion for ourselves. We want to have compassion for ourselves and acceptance. We have to accept ourselves for who we are. We know who we are. We know that there is always room for improvement in ourselves. We know that. And I talked about one time, one of the talks, the podcast I did was talking about self-improvement. Self-improvement. Self-improvement is important. Self-improvement, self-acceptance, all those things are important because you are important. And so you need to take the time to make sure that you're taking care of your mental health, that you're having compassion not only for others, but having compassion for yourself and being accepting of yourself. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. None of us are perfect. And all we can do is be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And we continuously strive for that every day. Maintain. And that also includes maintaining a healthy inner dialogue. You know, people say, oh, they talk to themselves, they cry. You can talk to yourself. You can give yourself affirmations. Again, I am worthy. I am good, right? So you have to be able to talk to yourself and give yourself. It does nothing and does you no good to speak ill of yourself. Once again, you are worth it. You are worthy, and we continue to strive to take care of ourselves, and we continue to strive to also take care of our mental health. And all those things are involved in taking care of our mental health. And so there are, like it was with the physical, there are some questions that you can ask yourself about your mental health. Are you getting enough time, making enough time for activities that mentally stimulate you? That mentally stimulate you. Are you in a book club? Do you read magazines? Do you do crossword puzzles? Do you do whatever those things are that can stimulate you mentally? It could just be conversation. Again, sometimes you have to get away from people who are always down. They just Debbie Downer, Donnie Downer. And every time you talk to them, they are just down. It does not matter, whatever that is. Sometimes you don't want to hear that. You know, I don't think you're having a bad day every day. Sometimes we do have a bad day. Sometimes things don't actually go our way. We have challenges that we never wanted to take on, but they come again and again. Once again, we cannot eliminate the stressors in our lives, but we can do things so that we can better handle those stressors. So those stressors are not always crisis. That's what we want to stay away from. Everything is not a crisis, so we want to stay away from that. And the other thing, are you doing proactive things to help you stay mentally healthy? Are you doing proactive things to help you stay mentally healthy? And all those things that I mentioned before, you have to be intentional about doing those things. You have to be intentional about your physical health. You have to be intentional about your mental health. You have to be intentional about your overall health, your overall self-care. All right, we're going to take another break and we'll be right back. That number again that you can call in or text in your comments is 305-898-0279. Self-care is not selfish. So I've given you a definition of self-care. I've told you why self-care is important. We talked about physical self-care and we talked about mental self-care, and we talked about the fact that the physical and mental self-care are interdependent, interconnected with one another. And so when we do one, we do the other. So we need to take care of both in order to have our well-being and to be well-rounded in our health. Now, another point that I want to talk about is understanding the self-healing process. So we can heal ourselves. We can do things to improve our own well-being. And those things involve us, once again, taking care of our physical health. And I will repeat that. Going to the doctor when you're supposed to go to the doctor, getting your checkups when you're supposed to get your checkup, taking your medication as prescribed. Sometimes we want to say, well, I'm going to skip it today. I'm feeling better. I'm going to skip it today. But let's not do that. Let's take the medicine as prescribed and do those things. Exercise. We want to make sure that we're getting exercise. Even if you're walking 10 minutes a day, if there is something that is consistent, you will eventually see some type of improvement in your health if you do it consistently. And exercise is actually something that is tangible. It's tangible. So you can see the benefits of your exercise. So we want to make sure we're getting exercise. We want to make sure we're getting the requisite amount of sleep that we need. We want to make sure that we have that positive mental stimulation that we need so that we're taking care of our mind, body, and our spirit. We want to make sure we're taking care of all those things. And so along the way, we need to develop some processes of taking care of ourselves. What is that? What is that self-healing process? How can we do those things? So sometimes people say, well, maybe yours is, I'm going to take a bubble bath, I'm going to turn off my phone, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to sing the song, but I'm not going to do anything, and I'm just going to relax. And relaxing is a skill. People tell you, relax, just relax. But relaxing is actually a skill. You have to be able to calm yourself down. And a lot of times it requires you to take deep breaths and let it in and let it out slowly. Meditation is a form of self-care, of kind of turning yourself. You can't turn your brain off. There's no such thing as that. But you can do some things to try to calm yourself down, to relax yourself. And so that's what we're talking about. And there are many different things that people do to relax themselves. Some people work out. That relaxes them. Exercise, and actually exercise is a good relaxation technique when you exercise, because it's doing all those things in your body and it's doing all those things in your mind, and you actually have to concentrate on something. So you cannot exercise effectively if you have all these things running around in your mind, because you need to pay attention to what you're doing. Form is important, so you need to pay attention to what you're doing. And so some people exercise, some people play sports, but whatever your thing is, whatever that thing is that you do that relaxes you, that gives you an opportunity to say, listen, I'm going to take care of me. And I mentioned this before, and I know you guys probably think I'm crazy, but no is a complete sentence. N-O is a complete sentence. And you don't have to put anything behind that. Just say no. I don't have the mental capacity to handle this right now. I don't have the mental space to handle this right now. So I need to take some time for me. And that doesn't include you. And that's not rude. And that's not selfish. Self-care, remember, is not selfish. It is a necessity for everyone, and you need to find that thing, because you need to take care of yourself. And once again, as we talked about at the top of the hour, that you don't want to be tired, you don't want to be overwhelmed, because all of those things affect your mind and they affect your body. And they keep you from being and living your best life, which is what we want to do. So we're going to talk about the self-healing process. And the first part of that, when we're talking about self-healing and self-care, is about identifying those areas in your life where you have experienced pain, you have experienced trauma, or daily stressors or challenges. Then it's about coming up with practices in your daily lives to promote healing. So identification for anything, in order for you to do anything, to improve upon yourself, self-improvement, anything, improving upon your health, you have to identify those areas where improvement is needed. So you identify, what are those stresses? What are those things that's causing you pain in your life, that's causing you stress in your life? What are those things? Once you identify those things, identification is the first step. Then you can decide, what are your options? How can I better handle these things? And if you can't do it by yourself, sometimes you can do it by yourself. Sometimes, again, it's just as simple as unplugging. It's just as simple as saying, hey, I'm just going to take some time for myself today. I'm not going to do anything, nothing at all. Sometimes it's as simple as that. And sometimes it can be complex. Sometimes it can be a little bit more complex. But guess what? Here's what we do. When we have a physical ailment, we go to the doctor. When we having some mental ailments for some reason, we don't want to go to the doctor for that. But there are specialists, there are doctors. So if your issue is more complex than you can handle, that can also cause you stress. If it's more, and if you don't get the help that you need, it just compounds. Just like interest. Interest compounds daily. So you don't want it to compound daily. You want to make sure that you're doing something to help yourself. So that is a process of your self-healing that you need to take, and you need to take it seriously. Remember, self-care is not a luxury. Self-care is a priority. And you cannot do anything with an empty vessel. Let's remember that. The other part of that is how long the self-healing process takes will vary from person to person, because what people are dealing with are different. I may be dealing with, it may seem as though I'm dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with. But what we won't say is same, because same means exactly that. There are no differences in what we're dealing with. It is the same. So we can say similar circumstances. You may be dealing with similar circumstances, and you may approach it differently than the way that I would approach it. But it's important to recognize self-healing is a process. It may not happen overnight. It is a process. So we need to, once again, be compassionate with ourselves. Give ourselves a break. You need to give yourself a break. Be compassionate. Again, we have compassion for other people, but we need to also have that same or even more compassion for ourselves. Nothing is going to happen overnight. So we have to also give ourselves room to say that we understand that it is a process and that it may take a little bit of time. But the most important thing that I've said is that we have to identify those things that are challenging, identify those things that's causing us stress, and make sure that we are doing something to help ourselves. And if we can't help ourselves, if we've done all that we can do, then we need to seek professional help. Seek professional help. So we're going to take another break, and I'm going to come back with the wrap-up.
You're now tuned in to Let's Talk with Lady Blend on Intermix Radio.
Hi, and we are back. Once again, thank you for listening and thank you for tuning in. That number, once again, is 305-898-0271. If you want to call in with your comments, you can call or text your comments to that number. Again, I am Lady Blend, and you are listening to Let's Talk with me. And our topic today is self-care is not selfish. So at the top of the hour, we talked about what self-care is. And I gave you a couple of quotes from some people that I thought were just very impactful. And so I want to read those quotes again. And so the first quote is from Parker Palmer. And what he says is self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship of the gift I have, the gift I was put on earth to offer others. Anytime we listen to our true self, and give the care it requires, we do it not only for ourselves, but for the many others whose lives we touch. And we know that we all touch other people's lives every day. So self-care is not just for us, it's also for the other people whose lives we touch and who we interact with every day. And we are able to interact better by taking care of ourselves first and then interacting with others. The second quote was Eleanor Brown. Eleanor Brown says, "Rest and self-care are so important. When we take time to replenish our spirits, it allows us to serve others from the overflow. You cannot serve from an empty vessel." And we know that to be true. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. When you take care of yourself, when you do those things that are required to take care of yourself, when you replenish your spirit, when you replenish yourself, then you have room. You have room to help someone else. But when you are overloaded, when you are tired, when you are overwhelmed, and your vessel is empty, trying to help someone else, it just replenishes you all over again. It doesn't help you. Remember, no is a complete sentence. And sometimes you have to tell people no. So the other thing, we talked about self-care. So we said self-care is the conscious, the intentional act that people take to promote their physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being. It is vital for building resilience towards life stressors that we can't eliminate. And we have a comment. The comment is, "The timing of this is interceded by God. We too often put our self-care on the back burner to others' needs." And that is absolutely correct. We put ourselves, again, we look at self-care as a luxury sometimes when it should be a priority. So we need to stop looking at self-care as some luxury or something that, like, we're just taking a luxury vacation to Paris. No, self-care is a priority, and it should be a priority in your life. If you want to live your best life, you must prioritize your self-care. And if you don't, we know that you get tired, you get overwhelmed, and those feelings don't feel good. Ultimately, they can affect your physical health and your mental health, and that's not what we want. We want to have good physical health, and we also want to have good mental health as well. And we talked about also the importance. Why is self-care important? Self-care is important because it has overall well-being benefits. Some of those benefits that we can reduce anxiety and depression. When you're overwhelmed, when you're tired, when you're just depleted, that causes anxiety. That can cause depression. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so that we can reduce those. We cannot eliminate all those things, but we can do some things to reduce it. It can also help us to reduce stress and improve our resilience. When we take care of ourselves, when we practice self-care, it makes us more resilient. It makes us more resilient. And again, we can't get rid of the stresses that are in our lives, but we can handle them more effectively. And that's what we want to do. It can also improve our happiness. We talked about that as well. Because if you're happy, if you're taking care of yourself, if you're realizing and identifying those stressors that you have in your life, those challenges, you're better able to deal with them when you're taking care of yourselves. It increases your energy. You have more energy. You're not tired. You tend to not be so overwhelmed. So it increases your energy. We want to make sure it reduces burnout. And we know burnout, again, is a real thing. You can be burned out from trying to do everything to everybody at all times and not taking care of yourself. It does not work. Burnout can cause all kinds of health issues as well. So we want to try to alleviate that from happening. And when you take care of yourself, when you practice self-care, you can build stronger interpersonal relationships because, again, you're not operating from an empty vessel. You're operating from a full vessel, and you have the opportunity there to pour into someone else. Now, again, I want to just give you this about the healthcare, the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization says self-care is important because it can help promote health, prevent disease, and help people better cope with illnesses. And that's what we want to do. So we talked about physical care, we talked about mental care, and we know once again that those things, I cannot stress enough that those things are interconnected. And we also have to understand and make sure that we practice some self-healing. That comes with our self-care, that we practice some self-healing, that we're able to identify those areas of our lives that we need to work on. And so identifying those things helps us to better understand them and to better do something about it. And so we know that we need to get sleep, adequate amount of sleep, the adequate amount of nourishment for our bodies, because we have to take care of these vessels. These are the only ones we have. And so we have to do our best to take care of what we have so that it will take care of us. So finding that self-care routine, that self-healing routine that works for you is very important, and practicing. Again, self-care is not a luxury. Self-care is a priority, and we need to prioritize ourselves as much as we prioritize others, or even more. Because when you take care of yourself, you have room where you can take care of and pour into others. I thank you so much for listening. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and I hope you got something out of this. Self-care is a priority, not a luxury. Thank you for listening.